You have stumbled upon or perhaps intentionally ended up here at my podcast, Actual Leigh. No matter the path that led you here, I hope that you will hang out and join me for a truly enjoyable conversation. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to Actual Leigh. We are back this week with just the me. It's just the me and Amos, who's down here looking at me like, because I closed the door, and he doesn't really hang out with me that much anymore. So he's stuck in here though. I told him I was gonna close the door. He didn't listen. So yeah, I hope that you guys all have had like a good week, and we are here with Homer Simpson's nipple again. It is actually the same day that I recorded the last episode. I have a whole bunch of stuff going on, so it's easier for me to do this a couple times in one day than try to plan to space it out or whatever. So yeah, I also realized the way it was like you couldn't see my hands, so some of my body language was missing last time. I try not to look at the screen because I don't like seeing my face do things sometimes. I'm like, oh, why you do that? So yeah. I wanted to talk about, by the time this comes out, it's going to be like, but I wanted to talk about this glitch that's been happening in Diablo 4, the Vessels of Hatred DLC. It's so bad. It's so bad. Matter of fact, it's so bad. I'm gonna put a little clip so that you can experience it as well. But I'm gonna make sure that it's not quite as loud as my voice, so that if you're like in the car, I have headphones on, I don't traumatize you. And go. So my friends chipped in and sent me some money so I could get the DLC, and I was pretty excited to play it. And then it ends up that the game, the packet, the DLC, the expansion, whatever the fuck, it's not so well tuned for the PS4. And it sounds like people on some other consoles and stuff are having some similar issues, but they're a little different. Like the sound will go away rather than become distorted. But this distortion is very specific to the PS4, it seems. And it just happens. Like if you're in an area from the original game, it doesn't happen as much. Every now and again, a little bit. But it's mainly when you're in the expansion areas, and the more enemies, the worse it is. Like I played for a couple hours and I just suffered through the noise, but it was like dragging me down. I was just like, God, this sucks. And I can't hear anything that's being said. So I'm not getting information about the storyline. I'm not getting information from my character, like when I need to wait for something or whatever. It's really yucky. But the thing that makes it extra yucky is that Blizzard hasn't acknowledged it in a meaningful way, even though it's impacting a lot of players. It's not like it's impacting 10 players. I don't know how many people are playing on PS4, but I gotta feel like it's probably like more than 100. I'm sure it's a lot of us. And the only real acknowledgement that they did was on the EU forums. Somebody went into one of the threads, because there are many threads about the issue. People keep making new threads trying to get some kind of acknowledgement from Blizzard on it and create awareness around it. Somebody commented, said, "We are aware of the issue, blah, blah, blah," generic canned response. And that was it. They didn't put that acknowledgement anywhere else. Like the forums have like a pinned thing, and when they release fixes or patches or whatever, people can look there to see what they fix. So, you know, they have like space where they could like communicate, "Hey guys, we know this bug is happening. We're working on it." Because, you know, that can help. Like acknowledgement is just powerful, right? I'm pretty sure I've talked about that before. And the fact that it took days to get this one acknowledgement that wasn't even put in a place where all, you know, where it would be easy to find. Just, it's so disappointing, you know. You kind of, with these like, with these games that have a lot going on, kind of expect there to be bugs. I don't necessarily expect there to be bugs that are so severe that the game isn't playable, but I expect there to, you know, be some issues. But you also expect them to be aware of them as they pop up and working on rolling out fixes and stuff. So I don't like, some people are just like, "Oh God, perfection. I expect perfection. If I spend money, perfection." And I'm not like that. I'm like, you know, shit happens. And as long as they jump on it and work on it, if it makes the game unplayable, they need to work on it like now, really, you know. And they've been like tweaking other stuff, but it feels like they're not prioritizing that, and it's a bummer. And hopefully by the time this is out in the world, it will be fixed. Because somebody got a response on Twitter from somebody who said that the fix should be out like next week or whatever. So sometime this week, because today's Monday, so hopefully sometime this week. But I mean, it's basically been a week exactly since this was released, and there's a whole bunch of us that can't play it unless we want to suffer horrible noise or play the game on mute. And that's kind of a bummer, you know. And they're probably not gonna like compensate us, you know. I mean, and in my mind, like the expansion pack that got included like the season pass thing, so I feel like I'm wasting that as well. Um yeah, just kind of, it's like people make mistakes that doesn't undermine the quality when people care about the mistakes, you know? It's that lack of caring that just makes me feel, you know, I mean, Blizzard, I'm not as into as I used to be. They've changed a lot over the years and changed hands, and, you know, but Diablo I enjoy, you know. If they came out with like a Warcraft 4 that was more like Warcraft 2 or 3, I would probably play that. But I'm just, yeah, this I don't know, you know, kind of disappointed, y'all. So I did get some topic requests, and I've been saving them so that I could go over them. So I figured I would do that. Um, so I had one of my friends, RJ. She asked about my creative process. Like she wanted to hear about that, and I feel like that is it's a it's like work in progress. It's like a skill set and an experience that I'm very new to. Um, and I know that I've been doing it for a couple of years now, but it still feels very new, in part because some aspects of what I was doing, I stopped being able to do, like painting, right? Like I was just starting to get a feel for painting when I got unhoused and stopped being able to do it. And that urge is still there. I still think about it, but I don't have space, you know? So, and I wasn't like like one of the things when I was doing the painting that I was trying to learn how to do was to be aware of like my feelings and see if I could like connect those to the creative process. Everything's very analytical for me, and yeah, so I think I might need like a room that I could just make a big mess in before I would be able to connect my emotions. I feel like I might be like the Tasmanian devil like that. But for the stuff that I have been doing, like the collaging I did last year and the making the jewelry, clay stuff. Well, the collaging is like I was just like going through like the books with different images and just like cutting out stuff. I don't really visualize, so I can't like look at something and be like, oh, I want it to look like blah blah blah. Instead, it's more like I want it to feel a certain way. I don't know what that looks like. So I'm gonna like play with some things and see what it feels like. And then sometimes I just want to do stuff. I have no idea what I want it to feel like or what it to look like. So I just do stuff. And then those are like surprises. Sometimes I get really cool stuff out of that where I'm just like, what the hell? And as I'm doing it, like as I find something, because sometimes I'll just be like, I don't know. So I'll cut something out like a plant or something, and I'll just start with that. And then I'll just be like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try this, because I can't look at it and know how it's gonna look with that thing on there. So then I just have to kind of like cut it out and see how it looks. And the painting was very like when I was painting, it was very like learning how the paint moves because I was like, well, I want it to be this way, I want it to feel this way. So, it's like I start thinking about how can I get the paint to do the thing kind of thing. And then sometimes it was like, I'm not really sure what's going to happen when I do this, so I'm just going to do that and see. Lots of exploration there. So there's not like a fixed thing. I would say that the only thing that's fixed in it is like my openness to randomness, right? With the jewelry, it tends to start with an idea. Like I'll see like a clay cutter, a particular thing, and I'll be like, oh, I bet I could do something with that. I don't know exactly what I could do with that, but I bet I could do something with that. And so I get the clay cutter shape or the resin mold or whatever, and I play with it. When I first started doing resin and clay, what I did is instead of, I wasn't really sure what to get, so I've got these mystery bags of the cutters and stuff, and then I just made stuff. So like the brass knuckle necklaces that I make with the rainbows, and then the psycho necklace, those are all from random resin mold makers, where I didn't choose those. They were just in there, and I went, I could probably do something with that, and I did. And I did sell one of the psycho ones, and I've sold a couple of the other ones. So yeah, like like the pumpkin cutters, I was like, pumpkins, people like pumpkins, I can probably do something with that. And I've made a bunch of pumpkin earrings, and I haven't sold any of those, but I did make some. And then dinosaurs, I just thought they were cute, you know. And then some of the others, like the little cats and stuff, those have evolved. Like when I first started out, I was painting everything and I was painting in the eyes, and now I'm putting resin in the eyes. So it's become more finished looking. It's a little more work as well because I gotta like literally drop by drop put the resin in there. So there's some learning and evolving as I like do other stuff. I'll be like, hey, I wonder if I can do this, and then I just try it and see what happens. And unfortunately, my brain is not very nice to me, so a lot of stuff I make it and I'll be like, I don't know if this is any good or not, but you know, And I get bored really easily, so I can't make a lot of the same stuff, which is why most of my stuff, there's only, like I make three of them, and then I'm like, I'm never making that again. And if I do make it, it's not going to be the same. It's going to have to be different in some way. So yeah, that's, and there's like a, when I get the idea, there's like a fire, and I think that's like the dopamine or whatever. It's the chemicals in my brain being like, oh, we got to do this thing, it's going to be awesome. So there's always that, like, fueling it as well, with a little bit of like anxiety mixed in that it's not going to be good. So I guess that's my creative experience, which also translates to my creative process. Uh, I imagine, like, as time goes on and I have more experience, that like that might change some, because I'm gonna have skill sets, and so I'm gonna be more confident about the end result of certain things. So yeah, I hope that I hope that covered that. If not, let me know. You know, I can expand further. So another question that I got was basically is from Lily, who was on my podcast before. You probably remember her. She asked she or said that she'd love to know how I store, maintain, care for my cosplay gear. And I so most of the clothing is in my closet. Like half of my closet is just my cosplay stuff. Like the tutus, I use the little clippy hangers. And same for like the corsets and stuff like that. It does, I feel like it's nicer to them, but I do that with my clothing, all my clothing. I just hang everything because it's just easier for me. I There is something about putting things into drawers that does not work well for me. I find it very difficult to keep things organized. I can put dividers in and there will be chaos. It just, I can't, like, I cannot put stuff back very well. I do okay with my socks, but that's kind of it. Like, shirts, it's chaos. It's so I don't know if that's an ADHD thing or what, but it's a problem. So I have like a couple drawers down here that have the things that don't hang well, like my tank tops and my socks and underwear, stuff like that. And then I have a little rolling cart in the closet right now, just because I haven't been cosplaying, that has like my props in it, like glasses, sunglasses, and stuff like that. And some of my spicy stuff as well, because some of that spicy stuff doesn't take up very much space, so it just kind of gets stuffed in a corner. My wigs are in a basket at the top of my closet. If I had my way, I would either hang them like they have these wig hangers, or I would have like a little stand for them, but I don't have any space for that. So I try to be as nice to them as I possibly can when I'm shuffling through them, and just keep them up there out of the way so my cats don't eat them. My hats are next to the wigs, just kind of stacked up nicely on that top shelf together. And the shoes, I have a shoe rack in the closet, like a small one, because I don't own a lot of shoes personally for leaving the house. I have more for the cosplay stuff, I guess, which is funny because you don't see my feet in the cosplay very much. But so those shoes are there. And then the makeup is in my table, is one of those IKEA tables with the folding leaves. and I guess that's what it's called. It has drawers, and right now the makeup's in there. I haven't worn makeup since before I started using the table, and it is absolutely not organized in a way that is conducive to wanting to do my makeup. So for now, everything's in there, like it's just being stored in there. But when the time comes for me to actually do my makeup, I will have to create another system. I'll probably create the system as I'm doing my makeup. I'll like get an idea and be like, oh, okay, I can do this because I'm not good at like looking at stuff and being like, I should put this in there. I need to use it in the space. And then I'll be like, how can I make this better? What was really frustrating about this? And then tweak it. So, but the makeup before I used to have like a little rolling cart that my makeup went into, and I had it like organized by the certain things that I used together. So I could have the one drawer open while I was doing that stage, and then the next drawer was for, that stage kind of thing. Yeah. And then my puppets, which are not part of the cosplay, but they're related. They are in a cloth box. It's not where I want to keep them. I would like to keep them out on a shelf on little puppet things, but again, I don't have space for that. And it's a little bit of a bummer because they do get beaten up and squished and misshapen. That's part of the reason why Naked Guy's head is a little bit crooked. It's also because when I first got him, I washed him because the person that sent him to me sanitized him with, this was like at the height of COVID, they sanitized him with something that was very perfumey, and I was like, I couldn't even have him in the house. I was dying. I was so allergic to him. So I washed him, and then it kind of misshapen his head a little bit and stuff. I feel bad, but it gives him personality. Yeah, so I don't know. I have behind me, you see the black thing back there? That is actually my backdrop for when I make content. I just kind of have it like pinned up out of the way, and then I just unclip it and spread it out. My plan is to get more shelves so that back wall will just be shelves for my crafting stuff like someday, if I, ever have money for that. And so that because right now my crafting stuff is it's everywhere. It's worse than wire hangers. It's just everywhere, and I keep trying to put things away, but there's nowhere to put it. So it kind of just turns into these piles because I'm like, well, I don't have anywhere to put it. And if I had like shelves, everything would have a home, and I would be able to find it because it would be like right there. So, but my plan was I was just gonna leave the backdrop because it's clipped. I use these little like tiny clips, put in the wall, and then it grabs the curtain thing, like right along the ceiling wall. So the ceiling wall, the, eh, so the shelves won't be in the way. So then I can just kind of set the backdrop on top of the shelf, and then when I need to use it, I can just pull it in front of the shelf, and the backdrop is like a foot or 2 feet longer than the wall, so you won't even be able to tell when, that the shelves are there when I'm making content. So yeah, man, it's just making sure I have space to make the content, which is why I need to be able to put my stuff away, because right now there's no space on the floor. It's like, it's like stuff. It's so like the RV, like moving into the RV, it had so much storage in the RV that like I was able to kind of work with it. And I got these little bins. And then but in order to move into the RV, I sold like pretty much all of my furniture. Like really nice stuff. I had these bookshelves that I've had for years and years with the glass doors. So protecting my stuff from like cat fur and Brago who chews on things. And I sold those because I went in the RV and I couldn't afford to store them. And if I had known that I wasn't going to stay in the RV, I would have kept them. And then I had these really nice metal cabinets, and all my cosplay stuff went in there. And I don't know if I would have had use for them here, but I could have used them. I have like a storage unit now, and I could have used them to organize my stuff in there, or we could have put them downstairs to put extra stuff because there's like no storage downstairs. There's like literally there's no closet or anything. There's a laundry area, and I put a shelf in there, and the like we put our paper towels and stuff in there, but just like there's not even really anywhere to put our toilet paper or whatever. There's just, it's weird. There's like very little storage in an apartment of reasonable size. So, what I did is downstairs there's like a breakfast bar type thing. I don't know who sits at those and eats at those, but somebody must. We're not going to use them. So, I got like these little cabinets from IKEA that fit right underneath that counter, and that's where our like stuff goes, like bulk stuff like our coffee beans and tomato sauce and black beans and stuff like that. Yeah. That's not even related to cosplay stuff, but now you know all about my storage stuff. And I got like, I got my tools. I have a really nice toolbox that's in storage, and then I just keep like a little box of the tools that I use more regularly underneath my bed. Um, so yeah, that's I hope I covered that adequately. If I remember, I will try to take some pictures if I can get decent pictures. It's so cramped in my room. Like the closet's right here on this side, and it's like a standard width closet, but it has three doors instead of two. So you have to constantly be moving two doors in order to access like this narrow gap to get in there. And then like my chair where I'm sitting is it's about 18 inches to the closet door. And then in front of my chair is about 2 feet, and that's where my TV is. And then on this side, I have like this little side table here, and the side table is about 12 inches. And then on the other side of the side table is another 18-inch walkway. So like, and then my bed, that's where my bed is. So like getting into things requires squeezing and tripping over stuff because like I have my ring light here, and I have like crafting stuff here, and I've got some like other stuff there, and then like it's that's why I need shelves, because I could put stuff away and still have easy access to it to use it. Instead of like right now, I don't really have anywhere to put stuff, except to just take it downstairs, which if I'm actively using something, I'm not, that's not gonna happen. So, yeah. Um, the other thing, that I was asked about was basically if I could talk about what I have learned in my journey of self-advocacy regarding my health. That's I feel like that could be like an episode all by itself. Um, what have I learned? What have I learned from that? I still don't fucking feel like I know anything. Because I never feel like I'm doing it right because I don't get the responses that I'm seeking. So what I've learned from self-advocacy is that it's really tiring. And if you have anybody that can back you up, that can just be there to keep you company, do it. Do not be like, oh, I don't want to be a burden or anything. Just be a burden. You're not going to be a burden, but be a burden, okay? Just burden people. Because the people who want to be burdened, the people who want to help you will be there. And I have to say that, like, not being alone when you're dealing with trying to get a doctor to like help you because your quality of life is shit. It helps protect your battery, you know, your energy levels, and it helps recharge a little bit to not be alone. So, you know, I guess that's like advice, but something that I have learned because I've been doing it alone. And I'm very tired and I'm very burnt out. And sometimes I just wish I could stop. I wish that I could reach this point of being able to manage things where I don't need to ask for help, you know? You know, I'm going to keep hoping for that. That's the goal, right? But I'm hoping that I can do that without staying at this level. Like I could get better and manage. But as far as like what to say, how to say it, it's a balance, you know, and it's you kind of got to get a read for your doctor. Some doctors are very ego driven and they feel inconvenienced when they have to listen to people, you know, either due to ego or due to the fact that they're swamped. You know, I don't think that doctors enjoy being doctors the way that they used to. My hope is that at least the specialists get to enjoy it because, you know, they're specializing and there's like new stuff and there's things and stuff and they're actually, you know, focused and helping people, you know. I feel like the doctors are dealing with more general issues like primary doctors and GIs. GIs are specialists, but they deal with a lot of different things and there's stuff that's sort of like ongoing and redundant and repetitive stuff, you know, like acid reflux or whatever. So I kind of put them in, even though they're specialists, I don't think of them as being specialists in the same way, that they don't get the exciting part of it as much. Plus they're dealing with people that like also just have like these really like sustained suffering, you know. So like I found, because I read a lot, I feel better when I understand what I'm feeling in my body through this external information, you know, like studies and stuff like that. And also like doing all of that reading, it has helped me like roll things out and figure out what tests to ask for and be like, you know, this kind of sounds like me. Maybe I should ask for that test, that kind of thing. And I feel like that's helped me get some more answers with my doctors than I would have gotten if I hadn't had that information, because I don't think they would have asked the questions to get me there. You know, but like some doctors just don't respond well if you're like, well, I read this paper and blah, 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 blah. It's like you have to figure out how to package up that thought in a passive way so that it can be their idea. And then there are the doctors that you can just talk to like a person and be very like, hey, I read this. What do you think about this? Or here are the things and whatever in the junk. And they're totally like cool with that. And they actually appreciate the fact that they can talk to you like a person too. Those are the minority in my experience. My experiences are somewhere in the middle of those two. I go in with a list. I don't give them the list. I tell them I have a list And then I use the list to stay on subject because I get distracted really easily, especially because I speak in specifics, and doctors are often very used to communicating with people who speak in generalizations. So when I say something, they often think that I'm saying something different than what I'm actually saying, and I mean literally what I'm saying. And so it can be challenging to kind of stay focused when I'm trying to wrangle them back onto focusing where, where I want them to be focused. I've also learned not to use all of my energy and enthusiasm for communicating by communicating to the assistant who comes in to take information before. I give them kind of like the cliff notes lit from the list, because the information that I give them gets mistranslated to the doctor, and I'm gonna have to wrangle them back to what I meant from the mistranslation as well. It's very rare that conversation like passes to the next doctor, to the specialist in accurately. They'll get some of the key stuff, like, because I'll be very specific. Like, say, I'll be like, okay, I have this pain on my right side, and then the pain will move and feel kind of like a volcano going across my midsection. And while it's doing that, it gives me this sensation, almost like I'm falling or something. And that will translate to midsection pain, which is inaccurate because it's right side pain followed by burning that travel. They're not the same thing. Midsection pain is, I don't, my neighbors are walking around and stomping, and it is so distracting because my whole chair is like moving, and it's so distracting. Um, I don't, I don't even know what's going on right now. It's crazy. Anyway, yeah, so you have to be prepared to repeat yourself a lot, even with the same doctor. Like, I talked to my gynecological surgeon person, the person that did my hysterectomy, and she's kind of handling my pain issues now, because the surgery helped a lot, but it didn't solve everything because I still have other stuff. So she was like, well, you don't need an actual gynecologist. I can take care of this for you. So I had gone in, I had an appointment. She had some assistants or a fellow or something with her, maybe both. And we had a conversation, and we were on a clear page of, I'm going to take this particular medication, and we're going to see how I feel in a couple of months. And if it helps, that will tell us that the pain I'm feeling is probably related to blah, blah, blah. And if it doesn't help, then we're going to have to look into it because it's not clear what it is, but it might be blah, blah, blah. Right? So we're trying to science it out. And I couldn't tolerate the medication. I tried 3 separate times, and the side effects were just. So I email her, and I emailed the surgeon, and I'm like, I haven't been able to tolerate the medication. Do you have any other suggestions? Is there another medication I can try that maybe has, a different dosage, or, something? And she responds back, like, completely off topic, like as if we hadn't had that conversation and an agreement of like a plan at the previous appointment, and just is like, well, I think that it's just muscular pain. And I'm like, but I didn't take the medication to test whether or not It is. So that's just an assumption. Yeah, it's like it's so frustrating. I was just like, so I took a few days, okay, because sometimes they're gonna make us mad, and we want to maintain a relationship with them. So I took a few days, and then I came back, and I was like, you know, um, it could be, but based on my experience in my body, based on the pattern, I think it's this because I do have muscle pains, and they feel like blah blah blah. This feels different, and I said, but that's why I wanted to take this medication was because it would help us narrow it down and confirm one way or another. Because I think the pain is being caused by congestion syndrome, and that because that's a thing that can continue to be a problem after, and the pain feels very much like that for me. So and then she responded back and was like, "Oh, thank you for clarifying and explaining further. I agree with you, blah, blah, blah." Like, at first I felt very dismissed because, like, we weren't on the same page, but it's really just that she probably wasn't recalling that conversation and didn't, like, go through the notes, like, super in depth. So, like, just by not reacting emotionally when I didn't feel heard and just kind of circling back, you know, but I also kept it very open. I didn't tell her. I said, this is what I was thinking. I tried to keep it open. She's one of the doctors that I had a really hard time getting her to hear me. She was like perceiving what I was saying as anxiety when I was being very factual about things, and I had to be like, no, 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 I'm trying to explain so that you understand why I'm being so persistent about this kind of thing. And definitely like did not mention anything that I've read. I just I just form my questions and stuff in a way that allows her to be the smart person. And yeah, my GI can just like, I'll be like, "Hey, I read this study. Did you read that study and things and stuff?" And he's like, "Ooh," like but yeah, she's not like that. My experience has been that the doctors that are on the outer edges of your care, like nutritionists and oh come on, there's other ones, but that they tend to be the doctors that listen really well. They'll have like all these like ideas of like, oh, why the doctors haven't tested this or why haven't they looked into that? That really sounds like blah blah blah. They have like, so much more like kind of like bandwidth for hearing and thinking about what you're saying. And I'm always like, why can't these doctors push my other doctors to be like, you know, to to do stuff, you know? I don't like it's so consistent. It's weird. But it's also reassuring when I have doctors that like agree with my curiosity, even if they're not the doctors that are going to be ordering the tests or whatever. It's just like it can be useful because I can take those conversations and be like, "Hey, so my other doctor mentioned this, and I was wondering what you thought about it." And sometimes that like plants the seed. And the other thing is just fire them if they refuse to do their job. I know some people live in areas where that's not an option, or it's gonna complicate things. But I'm lucky enough to live in an area where there's a lot of different doctors. So, you know, um, I mean, there's UCSF and Stanford. They're both pretty nice. So I have that. Plus there's like Sutter and stuff. So I have a lot of options if I'm willing to do do the homework. And the other thing is, always read about things before you agree to them. Medications, procedures, stuff like that. And, with medications, if you have a hard time understanding the paperwork or the information online, you can talk to a pharmacist. Most pharmacists are super nerdy and enjoy dispensing information. They like the info dump. So, and if you give them the context of how you're taking it or your other medications and stuff, they can be very informative. Like I've had like lengthy conversations with like compounding pharmacists and stuff about things. It's like off-label uses for things and stuff like that. And so, it's like make sure that you're making an educated choice, because the doctors, a lot of times, they're just gonna, they're most doctors aren't going to look at why you feel the way you do. They're going to offer you the the medications or treatments or whatever that are going to manage what you're feeling. They're not, looking to fix the problem. That's not always true, but in a lot of cases, it is absolutely true. Like, so, like I want to know why. Sometimes it's not possible to know why, but I always push for it. If it's remotely possible that I can get more information, I'm going to do more tests. I'm going to get as much information as I possibly can. I'm going to annoy the shit out of my doctors to get as much information as I can, and make the most educated decision I possibly can. It's, it's just medicine's not that far along yet. Sometimes it sounds like it is because there's like some pretty cool things we're coming up with, but we still cut people's knee joints out to replace their knees because things get worn out. It's fucking barbaric. That's just, it's, we, when people eat poorly for years on end and they get gallstones, as a result, we just rip the gallbladder out. Like, that's freaking nuts. Surgery is trauma. Even if it makes you feel better in the long run, you are traumatizing your body. It takes time. You can have a very small surgery and you might think you feel fine, but your body is still, there's still an inflammatory process that your body is still actively dealing with for quite a while after. It's a big deal. So it's, everything, I just think like we need to be as educated as we possibly can about anything that we're doing to ourselves or allowing others to do to us. So, like, my GI knows, like, if he's going to prescribe medication, just to tell me the medication, I'll look it up and I'll tell him whether or not I want the prescription. Because more often than not, I would be like, yeah, you know. Um, and sometimes I've come to him and be like, hey, can I take this? And then he's like, and he has to look it up, and then he comes back and then he's like, sure, let's try that. So, that was like one of my mast cell medications that I take. I asked for that medication. Um, but yeah, so it's, you know, and I think that like, getting information from like medical papers and NIH and stuff like that is good. The problem is that the way that they focus on the human experience of things, be it surgeries, side effects of surgeries, and pain post surgery, it's very limited. There's a lot of bias there. Um, like gallbladder, we'll go there just because that's something that's fresh in my mind. When you look up gallbladder issues, be it gallstones, hyperkinetic gallbladder, hypokinetic gallbladder, whatever, and you look at the list of symptoms, that it's predominantly the predominant symptoms are Diarrhea, loose stools, uh, right side pain uh, after eating, um, some other stuff. And it depends on how severe it is. Like, you know, if it's infected or whatever, then obviously you're going to have fever and stuff like that too. But if you dig a little bit deeper, if you go and you look at actual human experiences, like the patients reporting their symptoms, it's not it's not so organized. It's not so clear cut, you know. And so, you know, what the doctors tell you you should expect and what your actual experiences are going to be can vary quite a bit. And it can be hard to know when something is like super wackadoo and unreasonable or not, you know, because the doctors have this like narrow focus of like normal and stuff. And then you know, human experience can be very different. And the doctors are not always good at being open-minded to that. So, like, um, so gallbladder stuff. Hypo gallbladder means pushes the bile out too slowly, not enough force. And then hyperkinetic means it's like, get the fuck out, right? So when you look at like the papers about that, and the hyperkinetic is still like relatively new, and there's only like one paper that really like explores it as a condition. The the symptoms between hypo and hyper are almost the same. It's like loose stools and, you know, the pain and all that stuff. But I found another paper that was done where the only thing that they really focused on was basically like this type of poops that people had between hypo and hyper kinetic gallbladders. And that paper just went through and looked at the symptoms, specifically that symptom, and then tallied them up and then saw like if there was like a did one have more or the other. And that, you know, they looked at a couple hundred patients and they found that like loose stools were very common with people that had hypokinetic gallbladders, but constipation was very common for people that have hyperkinetic gallbladders. But when you talk to like a specialist or you read about it, they never mention that ever. Like, period. It's just like, you know, if you have constipation, they go, oh, it can't be your gallbladder. Like, you know? And if you go and you look, like on Reddit, there's a really good gallbladder subreddit where people share their experiences and stuff. There are like so many people that have constipation instead of loose stools with their gallbladder issues, especially on the hyperkinetic side. And then there's people who have gallstones that get their gallbladder removed, and they had like they'll be like, "Oh, I had IBS-C," and then they get their gallbladder removed, and it goes away. And like, I keep wondering how many people that get diagnosed with the gallstones, how many of those people had a dysfunctional gallbladder before that but had no idea, you know? And so they've been having all these GI issues and like these symptoms, and they didn't even know that that's what was going on, because they don't, when you have gallbladder issues, the first thing they look for are stones. And if they don't find stones, then they can do other tests. A lot of times they don't do other tests and you have to push for it, but they can do other tests. But if they find stones, they don't go any further. So there's no other tests done to look at the functionality of the gallbladder. They don't go like, oh, you know, how is it ejecting? No, because you have the stones, and there's two options for gallbladders with gallstones. Basically, is leave it until it gets worse or remove the gallbladder. Technically, there are other options, but those are the options that your doctor will usually give you. There are also medications they can potentially give you to try to break down the stones, but that doesn't seem to happen very much. So, so that's, it's, I've talked about this before early on in the podcast, but finding good sources of information from other people that have similar issues to you is important. But doing it in a way that you don't get sucked into the crazy, because there's a whole lot of crazy out there. Just there, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of like desperate people that are just hoping for help that will believe anything. There are people who have spontaneous recoveries who associate it with stuff that had nothing to do with their recoveries. It's just, there's just so much like just wackadoo information. Like in the thyroid community, there's this whole thing about like low dose naltrexone can change, malfunctioning thyroids and correct it or something like that. And this is like something that they tell people, and people believe it. But there's an actual paper. They went and did studies. They looked at it and they disproved it. They went, the low dose naltrexone does not impact, does not impact thyroid function either way. So, the science is there, but nobody wants to hear that when they're just so desperate for an answer, you know? So that's, you have to take everything with a grain of salt and do a little bit of homework. I think that's part of advocating for yourself. It's not just talking to the doctors, but it's because I think that like, we go to the doctors and they support us. They are a tool. They provide us with access to things that help us figure out what we need, help us get some answers so that we can formulate these tools. But I think that, there's a lot of healthcare that happens at home, changing your diet or changing the way you move your body, or, whatever. There's it's not just what the doctors are doing. They're part of it, but when it comes down to it, we're like at the core of it. We are the foundation. We are responsible for making things happen. And so, part of that advocating, part of like having sort of having a voice is not just, it's not just what we say to the doctors, is what we say to ourselves, but also all of that information that we get online and through the papers that we read and stuff like that, it's it's reassuring. I mean, sometimes it can be scary, but it's also reassuring for ourselves, and it helps with the crazy making, because I feel like it's a pretty common experience for people to feel disbelieved in their experiences, to not have their pain taken seriously or their symptoms taken seriously. There's just like this delay in getting care, and then so often it there requires so much pushing to even feel like anybody is noticing or cares about how our quality of life has been impacted, right? So there's like this crazy making relationship that happens with our bodies and with the world and with our doctors, as we're like navigating this sort of sustained suffering. And I just think, I kind of lost my, damn it, lost my train of thought. Um, yeah, so I think like getting that information, getting other people's perspectives and stuff, it bolsters us and it helps sort of reassure us, so that when we go talk to these doctors who are, they're detached. They are necessarily detached because they deal with people that are suffering all the time. And, you can't have your empathy on all the time. Ideally you have it on just enough to be able to listen and help people. But like, I think a lot of them kind of, you know, um, and, you know, it's kind of like, like where I started saying, don't do things alone. I think that like taking that information with us, like both other patients' experiences and any sort of like documentation that helps kind of like support where you're coming from, those things, kind of help, like I said, bolster us. So I think that that stuff's important, that, basically when you advocate, you're advocating to the doctor, but also to ourselves to figure things out, I don't expect most people to deep dive and specialize in things the way that I have, but it's how I manage my anxiety. For me, the more information I have, the better I feel. And just the act of looking up a question and then digging into it is soothing for me, because the question will pick at me and keep me awake. I know for some people, looking information up makes their anxiety worse. I have friends that they text me and ask me the question, and then I look it up, and then the way that I digest and give them the answer is reassuring to them. It's helpful for them. So, you kind of you got to find what works. Like what I say, like my approach is not necessarily going to be the right approach, but I do think that like you have to have critical thinking on all the time when you are navigating this stuff. And it's not just online, but also with your doctors, because sometimes doctors are just full of shit. Like just, you know, and yeah, that's another reason to always read about stuff. And as we get older, they stop paying attention to the way that things might impact us. So they might give medications that should not be taken together. They don't pay attention to the fact that like these doses that are normal at at a younger age are now too much and you could end up taking too much of things. And so like it's like important to remain aware of that as well, and remain aware of how the body changes over time, and the fact that doctors are not so good with older people. So then we have to be sure to be on top of things and advocate for ourselves then, or have people around us that are aware and can help us advocate. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a full-time job, you know. And um I spoke with my nutritionist um last week, and she's really nice. I just started working with her because of my recent stuff, and my GI is pushing all these ideas at me that are don't seem applicable, and she basically agrees with me. So, but but she said that she looked at my record and to see what I was up to since my last appointment, and she was like, "You got so much done." And I feel like I've been spinning my wheels, you know? Like I have a plan and I'm working on that plan, but I feel like I'm spinning my wheels and shit isn't moving. And it was like, it felt really nice to have somebody look at what I've been doing and be like, you got a lot done. Because it's making an appointment is hard sometimes. At this point, it's hard all the time for me because I'm burnt out. So like, I don't wanna, and I have appointments all the time. Like, like I don't ever go a month without an appointment because I have my pain injections like every month, but I always have like stuff going on. Because I'm always chasing things because I don't want to leave anything alone. I'm terrified of having secondary health issues as a result of my primary health issues making me less active. Or and I'm also afraid that I will, that I'm missing something and that there's something else going on. And if we don't catch it early enough, it's going to make it even worse, right? So, like, because even though I have these diagnoses, I don't, um, I don't trust them. I'm like, it could be that, but it might not be. It could be something else, right? So, like, I'm afraid of, like, there's lots of like things I don't go to the doctor for. Like, I overextended my hand. Like I was pushing something down the garbage can and it like overextended and it's been a couple of months and it was like hurting all across here, pretty bad for a while. And now it's just this finger. And it hurts a lot. Like every time I use my hand and I should go to the doctor for it. But I'm just like, by the time I go to the doctor for it, it'll stop hurting because that's how it works. And I'll do that for months. I don't know. I had my neck go out and I couldn't hold my neck head up. I had to wear like a neck brace. I bought the neck brace online. I figured all this out by myself and I was like I probably should go to the doctor. I never went to the doctor. Like I just kept stretching, doing a traction stretch and I kept stretching. And after like a couple weeks, it started feeling like my neck was gonna go back in. And then it finally did go back in, but it was like part way in, then it went out again, then in and out, and then eventually I got it to go back in, and it stayed in, but every now and again it would feel like it was gonna go back out. And I was just really careful with it until now it's not a thing, and I just don't move my neck in that way to tempt it to go out. So but, sometimes I feel things, I'm like, ugh. But like what would the doctors have done? You know? They would have put me in a neck brace and probably made me take muscle relaxants or some shit, which I do not think is what I needed. I needed that shit to be popped back in. So, yeah, there's lots of things like that that I don't go to the doctor for, but anything that like I feel like it might be systemic or could be progressive or, like if we ignore it, it's going to get worse kind of thing. I feel like, you know, that I should chase and figure out because there might be a clue. Um, so I'm persistent and it's a little embarrassing sometimes when I go to the doctor and they're like, wow, you have so much stuff going on. And I'm like, yeah, but I just want to be healthy. And if one of these appointments is the one that leads me to having a better quality of life, then it will be worth it. Um, right? I hope. But yeah. And the other thing, it's not really advocating, but just look into, like if the copays or whatever are a lot, look into financial assistance programs. Uh, like not all hospitals, not all organizations have those, but some do. And if you're in an area where you can pick and choose, um, you know, a teaching hospital with a financial assistance program is kind of the direction that I would go. I found teaching hospitals, yeah, you have to deal with students coming in and whatever, but they're curious, they're up on like new information, and sometimes will argue with the doctors for different, on your behalf. Um, and I do feel like the doctors are a little more like, I don't know, um, a little more not on edge. That's not the right word, but it like, they're like on their toes more. Like I'm not trying to make it sound like they're anxious. That's not it. It's uh they're a little more hip, okay? I can't find the word. Sorry. I don't mean it when I say sorry like that. I just say it. Uh so yeah, and then the financial assistance, it's usually there's like a cutoff, but it's usually pretty generous. at least where I live, where it's very expensive to live, it seems very generous. So that I do that. It doesn't help with my medication costs, but it helps with like procedures and stuff like that. So they didn't, if you don't have insurance at all, like when I first started going to Stanford, they wouldn't do the program. You had to have like some insurance or something. But and then I had Medi-Cal, so they didn't do financial assistance at all. Actually, I think that's what it was. I don't know, like if you don't have insurance, they don't do coverage at all. But I had insurance that didn't cover me going there, but could have in the right scenario. So therefore, I wasn't eligible for the financial assistance. It was confusing. And so I had to pay cash when I first started going to Stanford, and it was like a visit with the chronic fatigue specialist was like $800. And then they were like, "Oh, well, we'll just charge you half." Yeah, that's a good deal, right? Half. So, yeah, it cost me a lot of money to start going to Stanford, and but going to Stanford is how I got my chronic fatigue diagnosis. And I tell you, having a letter from Stanford when I was fighting with Social Security was very helpful. They took me seriously. I had to go to court and do all the things, and the judge and the things and the stuff and whatever, and talk to the job specialist guy who looked at my symptoms and went, there is not a job that she could do that would pay equivalently to what she was getting paid before. Because that's the criteria, in case you didn't know. It's not, can you do work? Because I was super worried when I went into that they were going to be like, oh, well, you could work at a gas station for like 12 bucks an hour. The minimum wage is higher now, but you know what I mean. And do that, but it's not. They actually look at like equivalent payment. So they're not total assholes about it. Basically, can you earn a reasonable living with your limitations? And he was like, no. I mean, I couldn't even. I laid down on the floor in the middle of the courtroom because I was so fatigued. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So, yeah. Um, but yeah. So once I got Medicare, once I got approved for disability, I got Medicare. I was able to go to Stanford because I can go pretty much anywhere with Medicare. And now I get the financial assistance because they take Medicare. So that's nice because my copays can be kind of expensive because it's like 20% of the contracted amount. And with some doctors, the contracted amount isn't very much. But with some doctors, it's like a lot. Like when I went to the eye doctor, it was like, I don't remember what the copay was because Medicare only covers certain parts of the eye stuff. And then like the eye exam, they don't cover that because they don't give a shit whether or not we can see. So I had to pay a decent chunk. I think my copay was like 50 bucks or something. And then I heard like 50 bucks on like what though? Like what the hell could they, that sounds like a lot. And then I had to pay like, I don't know, I paid $130 total, so the stuff that wasn't covered. And then, you know, but it adds up, So I'm very glad to have that because I don't have to worry about the copays for like my surgeries and stuff. And that helps because my meds are not cheap. Most of my medications are compounded. So they're not covered at all. They don't even go towards like anything. They don't go through my insurance. I just pay for them. It's kind of a weird system there. We're only going to cover the stuff that's legitimately made by the pharmaceutical companies, but there's other stuff that's made, because people that need lower doses or can't take the pill unless it's made without any preservatives or whatever the shit, like, we're not going to cover that. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I feel like I touched on that and a lot of other things. I'm very touchy when I talk about things, touch everything. But I think I covered the advocacy that, that what I learned is that it's tiring and it's lonely and it's absolutely necessary and it's hard. So like when you're doing it, when you're advocating for yourself, you're sending those emails and you're making those phone calls to make appointments and you're mentally preparing for your appointments and you're making notes for your appointments. And when you're putting off calling to make an appointment for 2 months because the emotional energy required is a lot, it's all normal. You're doing it. You're doing it. As long as you keep doing it. If you have to like get yourself a special coffee with a little more sugar than normal, or stay up and watch that extra episode of whatever, Rick and Morty or Adventure Time or something, to give yourself a treat, you should do that, because it's a lot of work. It's not, even if you're not chronically ill, navigating the system to do like the most basic stuff can be like annoying, and it's a lot. And there's just a lot of baggage that's intertwined in health in general. Like the concept of being healthy and maintaining your health and in a preventative way is relatively new for humans. Like especially for it to be like so like systemic, right? Like we haven't been doing this for very long. I mean, you think about like just like prenatal care and pregnancy care and all of that stuff is, like really not even 100 years old. Like it's the whole experience of having babies and it becoming safer, and the health issues that babies were born with and the health issues that they were threatened by, all of these things have changed so much in the span of a lifetime. And these kinds of change, I mean, they have like significant cultural impacts, right? This is not an area that I have read up. I can just kind of like imagine it, that there's these cultural impacts, and you have people that are born into the world already changed. They're going to have certain expectations, but there's still like the older generations that have like a different way of thinking about it. And you can see the impact of that in the way that people who are older respond to the changes in their bodies as they get older, whether or not they end up with like a chronic issue like I have versus like an age-related chronic issue, like hearing loss or eye issues or whatever. There's a lot of resistance to using tools to make life easier, to make it easier to hear people or mobility or whatever. And you do see like in the younger generations, there's more of an openness and a willingness to accommodate ourselves so that we can live more fully by utilizing tools. It's like there's a definite like cultural difference in these age groups. And that's not to say that there aren't young people that are like, I'm not going to do, or whatever, but it's dysfunctional. It's, so it's kind of, it's interesting to think about it because like, we didn't even really acknowledge chronic health issues in a meaningful way not that long ago. I mean, it was not that long ago that people with MS that were being put into psych wards because we didn't know what it was. There are still places in the world where people with chronic fatigue are being put into homes and taken away from their families. It's crazy, man. So there's a lot of conflicting ideas out there, you know, like we have this idea that we should be healthy and we should do these things and preventative care. You know, there's a lot of push, especially like when Kaiser got really big. There's a lot of care about a lot of language around prevention and stuff like that, because that was sort of like the sort of core of their approach is if you do this preventative care, then you don't need as much, you know, care later. And I just said the word care so many times that my brain is like, uh, but like that doesn't that mindset of going to the doctor and doing this preventative care, it doesn't translate to our day-to-day lives. You know, people don't make, I mean, some people do, but a lot of people do not make decisions on a daily basis to take care of their health. Most people don't even think about their health until they start to have like issues or whatever, or when they go in for their checkup and do their annual physical or whatever. People just continue to destroy themselves until they start to have issues. And it's kind of an interesting, it's kind of interesting. It is interesting. It's interesting to me. Maybe not to you. I don't know. But it's interesting to think about it because there's a little bit of a conflict there, you know. Like our health should be something that we think about and are concerned about on an ongoing basis, because the better our health is maintained, the better our quality of life is ongoing, right? It doesn't mean it's going to stop like random genetic bullshit from happening or environmental whatever, but it certainly like helps, you know, like being physically active. And I don't mean like running and shit like that, just like going for walks and stuff like that. It does amazing things for the body. And, you know, just having a certain level of health just makes it that much easier for your body to deal with things like stress and injury and stuff like that. And a lot of people, the majority of people, you know, and when I say people right now, I'm going to just say Americans or Western culture people, because I don't have enough information about anywhere else. And I'm sure that like the rest of the world is starting to be more like us, but I, you know, there's just I don't know. Anyway, so I think that like, you know, the idea of like actively worrying about your health is seen as like, it's like this thing that, you know, perfectionists do, or people who want to be models or athletes or whatever, but it's not really seen as something that like is for the average person. And I think it should be seen as something that should be, you know, it's not about being like having an 8 pack or 12% body fat or any of that. It's just about like basic health, you know, like for basic quality of life shit. And that like if we are actively like aware of that and making like decisions to support our health as we go through life, it also gives us a better vocabulary for advocating for ourselves when something goes wrong, you know. So that's how that ties in. But yeah, I don't know, I'm just kind of, my brain's just kind of tripping out on the patterns of thinking about like health insurance companies like Kaiser pushing preventative care and stuff, while there's this cultural sort of bias against getting health care, because if you have anything wrong with you, you're weak or whatever. And, the way that they were kind of like pushing against that to be like, no, 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 but yeah, and that, we've kind of at this point where like healthcare, there's a lot of people pushing for the idea that healthcare, is kind of like a right. Even though like if culturally healthcare and being healthy is absolutely a privilege. It's you gotta be able to afford that shit. And live somewhere that supports that shit because yeah. Um but yeah, it's just there's there's something there. I'm sure somebody's written a book or something on it, but yeah. So anyway, I think it all ties together. I think like learning about the basics and being aware of what we eat and how much we move our body during the day and doing little stretches so that, we combat what happens when we're sitting at the desk and all that. It's, it's important, and I mean, really, like if you want to have like, if you want to have a routine that helps combat the sort of sedentary way of being, um, if you could like mix in like a minute or two of getting up and walking around every hour or half an hour, and it's not perfect, but it would absolutely make a difference. And if you wanted to like just go for a walk and walk 20 minutes briskly every day, that would make an amazing amount of difference. It would like it helps so much. And then it's just thinking about what you eat. Unfortunately, a lot of people think that what you eat doesn't matter if you like exercise or whatever, but that's a bullshit. Um it might not look like it matters if you're like exercising a lot and you look really fit, but your insides are like getting trashed if you're eating bad food all the time. So, you know, um and like what is bad, what is good, it's not always as black and white as it sometimes people claim it is, but there are definitely like healthy foods and anti-inflammatory foods, and then there are foods that are more problematic and better left in moderation. I'm not saying you have to stop eating them. I'm just saying don't eat them all the time. I don't eat a lot of that stuff like potato chips and stuff, but because I don't like them. Not because they're bad, I just don't like them. And I'm really, really grateful that I don't enjoy that kind of food because if I did enjoy that kind of food, I probably wouldn't let myself eat it anyways, and then I would be sad because, but I'm the asshole that, you go to like a party with chips and dips and stuff, and I'm like, where's the vegetable platter? Love that veggie platter. Um Yeah, not to say that I don't like some bad food, but I like pizza. I like Taco Bell. But I only like the bean burritos at Taco Bell. I really like those. And and the nachos. But just the cheese and nachos. I like Pollo Loco. They have like a salad, but it's in the shell, like the deep fried shell. I like that. The salad, the avocado, and the chicken, and the beans and stuff. I like that one. So see, I like some unhealthy stuff. Uh, anyway, I I don't even understand how I just talked for like over a fucking hour about that. Like I'm gonna have to cut myself in half. No, I'm not. It's just gonna get released all one go. But anyway, that was me answering some questions or requests. And if you have any questions or any topic requests for me, you absolutely could send them to me. And this is what happens because I get very like, somebody wants to know something about me. I am like a bottomless pit for attention. Just give it to me. Come on. Um, and don't forget, If you enjoy listening to my podcast, I it costs money. All of this costs money. So if you want to help out, I have a breakdown on my Patreon of how this costs money, and you could sponsor a month of one of my subscriptions, or you could sign up for my Patreon, or buy me some coffee, or share my stuff and engage on it. That is currency too. Okay, so don't think like, I feel bad because I can't pay her. No, you can. You can. Just engage with my stuff on social media. Share it with people, comment on it, like it, repost it, whatever. That is gold right there, okay? So, yeah. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you for hanging out and listening. A huge thank you to my patrons. I could not do this without you. Want to support my creative chaos and get access to exclusive content? Check out my Patreon. Have questions and/or interested in joining me for a conversation? Email me.